Fact number 1. Transgender is not a disease. This is not my opinion. This is facts from the World Health Organization and the American Psychology Association. Just like gay people don't have a disease. Fact number 2. Rich kids stay rich, poor kids stay poor. Out of 1,800 billionaires in the world, 12 of them are black. Where you come from, where you grow up, how much your parents earn, whether your parents were married plays a major role in determining where your
is there a question mark at the end?
Fact number 3. I would just like to remind you that hate speech is not free speech.
Yes, it is.
And my question is, since facts don't care about your feelings, why did you use false facts?
Okay, so none of the facts that I used are false. First of all, yes. No, okay, first of all, would you like the answer? Okay, so the 3 facts you mentioned, you talked about transgenderism. First of all, until 5 minutes ago, the DSM specifically defined transgenderism as a disorder. It defined it as gender identity disorder, now calls it gender dysmorphia, which doesn't even make sense. It says that depression is the actual problem, not the actual gender disorder, which again does not explain why the transgender suicide rate is upward of 40%, and the actual suicide rate for the rest of the American population is lower than 3%. Okay, so that's number 1. Number 2, you talked about income inequality, and you suggested that all wealth is inherited. This is nonsense. According to the IRS statistics, if you are born into the bottom 20% of wage earners in the United States, you will not be one of the bottom 20% of wage earners in the United States. 90% of people will not be within 15 years. There's tremendous wage mobility in the United States of America. Plus, there is not a group of people who just sit at the very top and stay there. People move up and down, in and out of the 1%. 1% just defines the line of income. It doesn't define the people who are in that 1% of income. I've been in the 1%. I've been out of the 1%. It will happen to lots of people. People who are older tend to be more likely to be in the 1%. They weren't once in the 1%. What happened? Okay, so that's number 2. Number 3, you say hate speech is not free speech. It depends how you define hate speech. The only speech that is not free speech is speech that overtly defends or pushes violence. Specifically, speech that is generating violence, right? That's the only type of speech that's not hate speech. If I say things you don't like, that's not hate speech. And if you think that it is hate speech, you're a fascist. End of story.
So what is your formal education background? Because I guess a lot of people don't know what your undergraduate degree was in.
So I was at UCLA in political science and then Harvard Law School.
Okay. So you don't have, you wouldn't consider yourself an expert in sociology?
I mean, I don't consider sociology a particularly expert field, but go ahead. I think I'm able to read a sociological study.
It is a field of study, but so you're not necessarily an expert.
Yes, there are lots of fields of study.
Right. Well, what I'm getting at is there's a lot of topics.
Let's put it this way, I know a lot less about welding than I do about sociology.
What I'm getting at is that you're not considered an expert in sociology, psychology, gender studies, lesbian dance theory, many of these things that you've brought up tonight.
I know a lot more about all those others than lesbian dance theory. As far as, if you want to take issue with the argument, I would urge you not to use the argument from authority, which is somebody has a PhD by their name, they know what they're talking about. That's a dumb argument.
What I'm trying to get at is that the fact that you have any other further education in any of these topics or any of these fields of study.
I don't need a 7-year degree in sociology, no bullshit when I hear it.
And granted, that's your opinion.
Right, because I'm here, yeah, giving it.
That would mean that you're also offering kind of an unqualified opinion on a lot of these topics.
See, again, you're just making the argument from authority. I don't think slapping a PhD from Ferris State next to your name makes you an expert in all things in the field in which you propose to speak. Okay, the fact is that either my argument's good or my argument's bad. Citing to my credentials is a really bad way of making an argument. It's like it's actually the equivalent of, it's so funny, when people do this, it's the equivalent of actually a religious person saying, citing to the Bible for an argument. I'm a very religious person, right? I mean, see this? It's the yarmulke, okay? I'm a religious person, okay? I never cite to the Bible. The reason I don't cite to the Bible is because that's an argument from authority. Okay, you may not believe the authority to which I'm citing. I don't believe the authority to which you're citing. So you're going to have to make me an argument as to what I'm saying that's wrong instead of just saying I don't have the properly enumerated degree from the institution of your choice.
I'm merely citing academia. If you haven't done any significant study or any type of educational, you haven't established yourself as a PhD or a doctorate in any of these programs, so how can you make a qualified opinion on any of these topics is my question.
Because I have read the studies and I can have an opinion on them.
So you mentioned how people aren't victims of circumstance. And
As a general rule, some people are, obviously.
But how do you explain people who aren't given access to certain things and stuff, and therefore cannot advance? Like, you cite like single mothers and stuff like that, and then fathers leaving them.
Mm-hmm.
And women, oftentimes, you see it all across the country, Planned Parenthood clinics being closed down and stuff, and they can't get access to contraceptives or abortion and stuff that would stop them from being in that situation. But you think that somehow they should just help themselves, but when in fact...
Condoms cost 35 cents. I think they can help themselves. I mean, that's the idea that contraceptives are not available in the United States is absurd. It's absurd. I'm sorry. It's crazy. The idea that you can't get cheap or free condoms anywhere. I don't think that killing babies is the solution to you making bad sexual decisions. End of story. I mean, I don't see why, the unsuccessful decision that you made was the decision to have sex out of wedlock and then get pregnant out of wedlock. That decision is not alleviated by killing the product.
So, since you're going to say mothers are forced to be parents, should you then also incite like laws or something like that, since you're going to force these women to be parents, that force men to be fathers?
Well,
and
there already are. It's called paternity
they're
tests.
not fathers because they walk out and leave their kids, and then you have this, as you cite.
Yes, absolutely. I'm in favor of that. It's called marriage, and the left undermined it. It was awesome. The system of marriage was the greatest boon to women of all time. And then feminism came along and said women need men like fish need a bicycle. And it turns out that women need men like women need men.
That's because we live in a society that's set up so women can't get as far as women.
No, it's because God created wombs.
So women should just, say suck it and have a child, suck it up and have a child?
Well, if you get pregnant, yes, because you don't get to kill things just because it's in your uterus.
It's my body. How about you just stay out of it?
How about it's a baby
How
and
about
you don't get to kill it
you're
because it's in
talking
there?
so much about how...
I don't care about your appendix. I don't care about your thorax. I don't even care about your uterus. I care about what's in it.
And I can take out my appendix if I don't want it, so why can't I take out other parts of my body?
Because they're not independent living human beings.
They're not independently living human beings when they're a bundle of cells.
Oh, okay. So let me get this. At what point? So okay, let's assume that your scientific knowledge is vast. Let's assume your scientific knowledge. So are you also against partial birth abortion?
I think I don't understand why people would have
At what point does that bundle of cells become a human being in your view?
Sorry.
No, really. I mean, this is.
No, I just need to calm down for a second.
Sorry, did I
Do you want to go to another question?
No, I mean, that is the relevant question. If your argument is that it's a bundle of cells, then the question becomes why it's not a bundle of cells.
Like, unless it's a threat to the mother, they form term abortion shouldn't happen. But if it's a threat to the mother's health, or the mother, I don't see why you would force a living human being to give birth to that.
Because it's another living human being.
So you're going to kill the mother to save the baby? And
no, hold on. You're talking about a case where the mother's life is in danger. I don't know what you're talking about.
Care and stuff after they're born.
I agree with you that abortion is an exception when the mother's life is in danger.
But the concept of bodily autonomy means that I don't have to give up any part of my body unless I say so.
The baby is not part of your body. The baby is a baby. Really, my wife is pregnant right now, and she's 30 weeks pregnant. Yeah. 32. That baby is kicking the living crap out of her. Okay, that is a living human being in there. Okay, and I promise you that it is not a bundle of cells. Okay, I can guarantee you it's not a bundle of cells because that is a baby. Okay, and I'm sorry, but
a bundle of cells that is requiring.
You're technically a bundle of cells right now.
You can say no. That is the concept of bodily autonomy. The entire concept of why we
Okay, so
we have other questions that need to be asked. You have 10 minutes.
We can go on all down this, but here's the final point. Abortion is a very simple issue. If you believe, as you do apparently, that that's nothing in there but just a bunch of goo, then you're right. If you believe in something called science, that is more than a bundle of goo, then you do not get to kill it just because it's convenient to you. And let me tell you something.
No, science definitely dictates that a fetus, until it can leave the womb and be technically viable, is a bundle of cells inside a person.
Okay, so if you can only live on life support, you're not a person. You stop being a person. So if you get in a car crash today and put you on life support, you're on an iron lung. You take out the iron lung, you're going to die. You're not a person anymore. Is that how this works?
if my brain is no longer functioning...
No, if your brain is functioning, but you can't breathe on your own.
Then I'm still technically viable. Brain function...
No, you're not, because the machine is keeping you alive. Look, again, the bottom line is this. If you are defining whether something is a life or not based on your own convenience, that is the nature of evil. Okay, defining what a human being or not, whether something is a human being or not, based on whether you want it or not, is nasty.
You manipulate science to enhance your own...
You're the one manipulating science. You're the one suggesting that it's like snot.
You
It's not like
said mental illness, when in fact the DSM-5, which is the definitive psychological examples of mental illness, has declassified it.
The DSM is highly politicized and has been for decades. And it was until 2 years ago, it was classified as gender identity disorder of mental illness. Okay, we can move on to questions.
Yeah, because you just don't like what we're saying.
No, see, the difference is I let you talk.
No, let's you actually know my father, but you had the same conversations with him, and you shut him down too.
In what way have I shut you down? You've been talking for like 10 minutes here.
She's been talking, I've been talking, but you haven't actually answered her questions.
No, I did. You just don't like the answer, and I'm sorry if you don't like the answer. What's up? As far as the institutional racism, all I would ask you to consider, you can believe what you want, but I would ask you to consider this. Shouting institutional racism does not actually combat racism. You have to find individual instances, and you have to show me who the racists are so that we can fight them together. I hate racism. I think it's evil. But if you're just going to say institutional racism every time something bad happens, there's no way to fight it. I need a policy that you're proposing, or I need a person who's actually racist so that we can fight it together, or we can determine whether the policy is good. What I find really problematic is the virtue signaling that I see by so many people on the other side, which is, I don't have to give you the racist, I don't have to tell you who he is or what measures I'm proposing. I just say institutional racism, everybody cheers for me because that's an approved point of view, and now we move on with our lives. You haven't helped anybody, you've just made yourself feel better. If you want to, have her respond, please.
Well, I think that institutional racism in and of itself, first of all, I would say that the majority of the people that do bring up institutional racism do also have solutions as to how to combat it. But
which invariably involve encroaching on other people's liberty. But yes.
Well, I would just say that there is kind of, again, I feel like you're painting a wide and diverse group of people with the same brush and saying that if you can't point to a policy or if you can't point to a person, then you're just wasting everyone's time. And I think that a lot of people are trying to point to policies. And while I think that the idea of pointing to a racist person is fundamentally in contrast with the idea of institutional racism, because institutional racism grapples with implicit bias in the society as a whole, or not like a ghost in the machine, but in individuals.
Unless you're connecting that to a policy, it's a cop-out. Because now we're ghost hunting again. If you just said to me, we have a problem in American society, income inequality, right, is a problem in American society. If you just gave me any problem, and I said, well, that's the Bilderbergs' fault, right? That's the fault of the Bilderbergs, right? It's a conspiracy, it's the fault of the Bilderbergs, right? There are all these conspiracy theories about the Bilderberg group. Now, let's say that it's the Bilderbergs' fault, or it's the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. It's whatever it is, there's some conspiracy out there. You would say to me, that's not useful because what are you even talking about? When you say institutional racism, it's too broad. You at least have to name me the institution. Which one is the racist one? Which institution is racist? Tell me which, so we can fight it, seriously, so we can fight it together. Just shouting slogans like institutional racism is not effective. Shouting white privilege is not effective. I want to be on your side. I do. I want to fight racists. I think racist behavior is evil. I want to fight it with you. But I can't fight it if you're not showing me what it is. And we have to decide together if the policies you're proposing will alleviate racism or exacerbate racism. And it turns out, I think, that a lot of the policies proposed by the left, I think institutional racism is is usually a lever for proposing a policy that is actually unpalatable to freedom, and then castigating people on the other side of that policy as being in league with the institutional racism. The policies are either good or bad without regard to words like institutional racism, is what I'm saying. Honestly, I would love to sit down and talk with you for an hour about it because it's a worthwhile conversation, and I think we could actually get somewhere with it. But I think that slogans generally tend not to be particularly effective in getting us to solutions.
So, how do you say that some people don't have privilege when you basically just said that trans people aren't valid? They're not a thing. They're just girls pretending to be boys or boys pretending to be girls.
Okay.
Okay,
Oh, someone's excited. Okay.
It's biological, but gender is a completely different thing.
No, gender is not disconnected from sex. So.
It's not completely disconnected, but it's still a cultural thing. It's still from society. It's
Okay. No, it is not in the mind. Okay, you're not a man if you think you're a man. And I didn't say pretending, or if I did, I shouldn't have said pretending. Let me amend.
You said playing.
Okay, I said a boy who thinks he's a girl. That's the usual phraseology I use. Not playing. I usually say a boy who thinks he's a girl or a girl who thinks he's a boy, which is technically what we're talking about here. As far as the actual psychological issues at play, it used to be called gender dysphoria or gender identity disorder. Now they call it gender dysphoria. The idea that sex or gender are malleable is not true. Okay, and I'm not denying your humanity if you're a transgender person. I am saying that you are not the sex to which you claim to be. You're still a human being, and you're a human being with an issue that I wish you Godspeed in dealing with in whatever way you see fit. But if you are going to dictate to me that I'm supposed to pretend that men are women and women are men, no. My answer is no. I'm not going to modify basic biology because it threatens your subjective sense of what you are.
Okay, but you're still saying these kids should not be accepted because they don't really fit into either place? They can't just
I'm saying that the Boy Scouts have a standard. You must be a biological boy to be a Boy Scout. You have to be a boy to be a Boy Scout.
Where's that written, though? Okay.
In the name Boy Scouts. Because this is a very because for all of human history, boy meant boy and girl meant girl. Boy did not mean girl. And if I call you a moose, are you suddenly a moose? Okay, if I redefine our terms. No, yes, that's right. Men and women are a completely different thing. This is true. Have you ever met a man or a woman? They're completely different.
You can't just say you're a cat. It's not a thing. It's genders. It's not saying you're.
Okay, why is that? I don't understand. Why? Okay, let me ask you this. Okay, I won't ask you how old. I will ask you how old you are. Okay, because you're young enough that it's probably not insulting to ask you. So.
I'm 22, so I'm probably young and naive, right?
No. Why aren't you 60? Why aren't you 60?
Because it.
And why can't you identify as 60? What is the problem with you identifying as 60?
Because it's not the same as gender. You can't just.
You're right. Age is significantly less important than gender. You can't magically change your gender. You can't magically change your sex. You can't magically change your age.